Okay, welcome. Welcome to the webinar you didn't know you needed. And I'm doing this as a re-up again. This is the third time because the second time there were only 7 people in the room, and I thought to myself, So it was Friday at 5 o'clock, and Laura said, don't do that. Okay, so I decided to do it at a more reasonable time. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see what you really want to see, which is, here we go. Online pedagogy. It's not just tech tools. Okay, so as we begin here, I want to acknowledge that Sherry is the co-host. She's helping out, and she's going to help people understand. They're going to stop their video when they come in, and please also, we are admitting you on the assumption that you registered. I don't see how you could be here if not, so we're just going to admit everyone, and welcome to all of you. Okay, so we're going to start with an advertisement from our sponsor. Yay, nice TESOL, right? I hope you're members, but if you're not, some of you aren't, join Nice TESOL for 2020. Get it? It helps support our advocacy and our professional development work, and please do it. So you should all be members if you're not. I've been a member since, am I going to tell you? 1975. Ha ha. Okay, so here's how you do it. I'm going to put in the chat the links. This is how you join. So here you go. And if you're not a member, this is a great opportunity to join. And those are your links. And I'm also mentioning the CTLE. If you don't know what that is, you don't need to know. But those of you who need the CTLE, which is 1 hour professional development from this webinar, you do have to join in order to get it. So this is something that we're asking you to do if you want your CTLE. And it's also in the reflection that you'll put at the end. You can also see a link there, but I put it in the chat. Okay, we're going to start now with our first poll. We'll have a few polls. So I'm going to pull up the first poll. And I just wanted to say that if you are watching the recording, which apparently a lot of people do, so could you all vote? Please, the question is, did you do the pre-work? So I've put the questions for the polls on the slides for those of you who are watching the recording, because I have found that by experience that the recordings don't show you the actual polls. So I'm putting them in. All right. And then I'm going to also put in here a link to the pre-work. And I'm going to ask you if your answer was no, although I got quite a lot of participants here. If your answer was no, I'm going to ask you right now, go and do the pre-work, okay? Now, the pre-work has a short video, which you don't need to do because you see me now. And it also has a video at the end, which we'll talk about later, that you don't need to do because we don't have time for you to do that. But there are 4 questions, 3 or 4 questions. I'd like you to go and answer the questions, please. Okay, if you did not do the pre-work, all right? If you didn't do it, go do it now. If you did it, you're fine. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll. And so we can see, I'm going to share the results, but I can tell you, oh, everyone who's here did the pre-work. Interesting. Okay, actually 30 people did the pre-work out of 60, and 30 out of 60, not bad, okay? So one of the things I say is with pre-work, which is what I recommend you do as part of online pedagogy, with pre-work, you never want to be punitive if people don't do it, but you have to be firm and get them to do it. It's really important. And now I'm going to share with you something that came up in the pre-work, which is what you think about online learning. So I'm going to share the adjectives that you chose, and here they are. So I'm guessing that you all can see this. So finish the sentence with one adjective. First, I said an adjective, and then people were giving me clauses, phrases and clauses. No. So then I put in the word one. And the minute I put in the word one adjective, people generally followed directions. Okay, I mean, you're nice T-Sol, right? Okay, I was gonna try and do a word cloud, but for now, we just have this. So here they are, alphabetical order. See, a lot of people put challenging, different, difficult, dynamic, exciting, exhausting, and then one of the clauses. Fun, 2 people, yay, that's what I think. And then some people are talking about motivation. Okay, interactive, interesting, limitless, master of both. Okay, cool, new word, all right. Possible revolutionary. Okay, so now here, some couldn't commit to one adjective, needs 2, fun, frustrating. Actually, I kind of agree. And there we go with suboptimal. I'm going to try and shift your mindset, whoever you are. Convenient, stressful, yes, we're going to lessen that today. Sad, well, we know why. Difficult, of course. Okay, so that just gives you an idea. I'm going to stop sharing that and go back to the PowerPoint. But I just wanted to give you an idea. The next thing I want to do is talk about where you're from. So if you could all please put in the chat, and Sherry, will you help me encourage any latecomers, remind them to put where they're from. So everybody just put where you're from. I know it was in the pre-work, but I'd like you all to see it because I can see it. I'm not going to go through it with you all together. And I'm going to tell you where the prize winner comes from. Can you guess where the person, in fact, someone from New Jersey wanted to know if they had permission to come because they're not from New York. Are you kidding me? We have people here from Ohio, Wisconsin, Arizona. But guess who the winner is if that person is here? Believe it or not, somebody is here. And I think where they're from, it's like 11 o'clock at night. We have someone from Germany. Don't know how that happened, but anyway, we do. So, willkommen. Ah, das gefällt mir. Okay, that's it. That's all I can do. I'm minored in German. Let's move on. Okay, so we now have a mantra. Our mantra is create fertile spaces. So create fertile spaces is my way of saying that I want you to shift your mindset when you're thinking about online learning. And the way I think about it, I started in 2003. I gave my first presentation on online pedagogy. And what I did was I had people from all over the world, even farther than Germany, all the sides of the planet, come in virtually and join me during the presentation. And these were friends of mine that I had met online, and we get together still. And my presentation was called Online Learning. Is it cold or is it warm? That was the presentation. And so I'm hoping to show you today just how warm online spaces can be, all right? And so our mantra is create fertile spaces, okay? Which I would like you all to say, because a mantra, if you don't say it, it's not a mantra. So I'd like everybody to say, and I'm not asking you to turn on your mics, although if somebody really, wants to resonate for the recording when they listen later, we could have a few voices join me, but I'm going to say it at the count of 3. Our mantra, create fertile spaces. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Create fertile spaces. Okay, so that is going to be our mantra. And why? Because I'd like you to shift from thinking about covering curriculum, delivering instruction, meeting standards. I believe that if you create fertile spaces, those things will follow. And many of you know how to create fertile spaces in your own classrooms that you normally have, but I'm going to show you how to do it online. That's the entire focus of this webinar. The spaces are different now, okay? And the way you're going to create is different now, all right? So here we go. Now, how we create fertile spaces, the way I look at being fertile is a space has to have what I call the 4 E's. equity, enrichment, engagement, and empowerment. And what I'm going to be doing in this brief time that we have together is to show you for each of these how you create it online. What do you do to make it happen online? Okay. And in the pre-work, I asked you to tell me one idea you already had for teaching online. So even though this is new for you, it's not totally new in that you can come up with some ideas and we can crowdsource those ideas. And in fact, Nice TESOL has a site, a resource space where people can get together and share ideas. I'll talk about that more later. All right, so let's take a look at each of these and what they mean. So let's start with equity. So when you provide equity, you're providing access. Now, the first thing that probably comes to your mind is that many of the families and the students that we serve don't have necessarily the kind of technology in their homes, the devices, the connections that we would want them to have, and they can't go out elsewhere to get them, at least not currently. So that's not actually my area. So there are other folks that address that. What I am looking at here is equity in terms of how to learn online. And so what I'm thinking of is just as you answered a question about your prior experience online, which I'm going to get to shortly. Many of your students, they really don't know how to learn online, and others might know a little bit and a little bit more or less.
So let me see.
Can you turn off your mic? Thank you. So what I'm thinking about here is getting it so that there's equity in terms of how they can learn from the online experience. Okay, that's what I mean by access. All right, next, adding enrichment. Okay, we need to add enrichment. Why? Isn't equity enough? No. Why not? Well, remember, we're competing here with everything around them, which is, you know, the rest of the people around them, their pets, their phones, their everything that's going on around them. And if we don't enrich it, if we don't make it compelling, then we're going to lose them. So what we want for enrichment is some kind of activities and ideas that will foster motivation. We need to get them, we need to grab them, and we want the motivation to be integrative and intrinsic. We don't want that instrumental kind of motivation or extrinsic, like, oh, I have to do it, or I need the points, or I have, you know, that kind of thing. We want it to be coming from inside. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Then we need engagement, because once they're motivated, that's great, but we need to get them engaged. And a lot of you mentioned this when I asked for what is your most pressing issue? What is it that concerns you the most about going online? And many of you touched on areas such as motivating them, getting them engaged, this sort of thing, okay? So a lot of this resonates with you already, but here's the how-to is what we're going to be looking at. In any case, when you do want engagement from them and get it, that's wonderful. It then leads to them to participate. And you want them participating because they can't learn if they're just lurking and sitting. Now, right now, you're not doing a lot of participating, although you're free to talk in the chat all you like, and it doesn't disturb the situation at all. Just chat away. But that's about it for in a webinar. There's not going to be a lot of participation. We have a couple of polls and a couple of surprises, but it's not. I'm talking the talk more than I'm walking the walk. Although we did, if you came in late, we did do a little bit at the very beginning about where people were from and what you put for your one adjective. We talked about that. And now the last one is, once they're participating, they'll feel empowered. Now, empowerment's one of those buzzy kind of words, but I'd like to say, first of all, and you're all Nice TESOL, or sorry, Germany, you're Arizona, Ohio, Wisconsin, but you're New Jersey. So I have to realize I've got other people besides New Yorkers, doesn't matter. In any case, you're all involved in teaching language. So the idea here is that this is not a transitive verb. You all know what I mean. So you don't empower somebody, all right? They have to feel it. They have to empower themselves. It's reflexive. Because what happens is when people feel empowered, then they take ownership. And let's face it, if you're really learning something, you've internalized it, you take ownership of your learning. And that's truly what we're looking for. So this is a summary of the whole webinar, and now let's go into each one. I'm going to go into each area, but first we have an advertisement from our sponsor, Nice T-Sol. So even if you're not a member and you don't live in New York, once again, we want to put in the chat, because some of you missed it the first time. I put it in here periodically for Laura and for everyone. Join Nice T-Sol, get your CTLE. If you don't know what it is, you don't need it. And now we're going to launch our second poll. And here is poll number 2. Tell me, what is your experience with online learning? And I did get in the results, I got a pie chart that showed me what the people who did the pre-work said about this question. So that's something that was interesting, because 1/3 of you were, at least in the poll, 1/3 of you were brand new. So I don't know if we're going to find that, but a lot of you are brand new. This happened to you. You didn't choose it. And so that's what I want to find out in terms of who actually is here, whether it plays out about the same way. So everybody answer right away so we can save time on this. Thank you very much. I'm going to say that's everybody's answers. And let's end the poll and take a look at the results. I'm going to share with you. And brand new, half. Okay, it was 1/3 in the pre-work. So that's still a good percentage. And, you know, it's a smaller group than did the pre-work or pre-registered, but that's probably typical. Okay, and if you're watching the recording, they're answering that question, and think about it for yourselves. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the poll, and let's go on to the next piece. Here we go. So this is the first E. So what we're going to do for each E is we're going to go to look at the E. There's a summary slide for each E. And then after the summary, I will go through each point in turn. All right. And as I do this, I'd just like to point out one little piece of business here, which is that I haven't published this yet. It is my own intellectual property, so to speak. And so if you want to cite anything, it's fine, but just cite it. And you'll see up in the corner on the left of every slide, creating fertile spaces, mantra. On the other corner, you see SOFLA. There's another webinar that I give on SOFLA. If you haven't gone to it, I'll be giving you the recording, or you can look up the recording of that. I won't be doing that one again, but that one you can see on the recording. That's my model of online learning, synchronous online flipped learning approach. Someone can pop that in the chat if you do happen to know what that acronym is. And then on the bottom of the slide, every slide is MALP. If you know anything about it, mutually adaptive learning paradigm, someone can stick that one in the chat if they know about MALP. And that's my other hat, which is culturally responsive sustaining education, my model for that. And actually they kind of will be merging in some work I'm working on now. But there is a website, of course, although we're working on it if anyone wants to help me with it, and the LLC. Okay, so I just wanted to say that. All right, let's get started with equity. What's schema theory got to do with it? Schema theory. All right. So when we think about schema theory, I'm sure you all had it, heard of it, talked about it in grad school. It's not new for you. But I think we need it right now because we're talking about some new schemata. Now, if you think about it, you've got 3 schemata: language, content, and formal schemata. Formal is the way we're learning, the way we're teaching, okay? So if you think about the students, they're learning the language and they're learning content. their students. The language is part of what they're learning, but they're also learning content. And now they have to learn a new way of learning. They have to learn online. And I think it's important to realize that they can't learn 3 different schemata all at once. You have to balance the schemata. So my suggestion is that you front load the third one, the formal schema. And if you have administrators who don't get it, explain it to them that you've got to put aside new language and new content because you've got new ways of learning. And you yourselves are educating yourselves, which is great that you're here, and I hope you're going to other ones. You're educating yourselves, but they need to also. So that's my advice to you regarding schema. Focus on the formal schema. That will take you a long way. Okay, and now the journey. Okay, so the other important piece about equity is give yourselves a break. My journey, just who remembers from the beginning of the webinar when I started my online journey? Who remembers the date? Pop the date in the chat. Who remembers? When did I start? What year? Who's here at the beginning? No, that's that's when I joined. Nice, you saw. Okay. No. My online journey, guys. Okay. It was 2003. So 2003 is when I started with online, with a TESOL course that was actually using webcam and audio. And it took me 5 years until 2008 that I actually taught a course online. 5 years in between passed while I educated myself. And then it was another few years. The first one I did was asynchronous totally. Then I added synchronous. Then I added flipped. And then I finally got to SOFLA, where I do my whole model. All right, so what about you? Many of you, you're just right now suddenly having to do it. So your journey is a very quick journey. So you need to be kind to yourselves and realize, I mean, I've been doing this for a long, long time, okay? It takes a long time. And I hope that I can be mentoring you today and whenever else you need. But be good to yourselves and realize, this is a process and it's very complicated. And as you said in your words, your adjectives, many of you acknowledge that when you said it was challenging, and it is. Now, think about your students. Oh my goodness. Well, back to the idea of the schema, you already know what you're teaching, your material, everything. What's new for you is the online, but everything's new for them. Yeah. So you need to cut them some slack too. Sure. So some of these proposals that people are talking about, like universal pass rate and all kinds of things are being discussed about review and all that. Think in terms of the journey everyone's making. And I put sentimental there because I think of the song, sentimental, because I am sentimental about online, because it's been my major professional development since 2003. That's something that I really needed to educate myself about, and I've put a tremendous amount of energy into it. Okay. And I hope you get excited today too, and you take that winding path that's on the slide. Okay. Now, the third suggestion is the helping hand activity. And this is really great activity because what you're going to find, as we said in the beginning, was some students are going to be more familiar, or they'll be better at certain things than others, or maybe can even teach you. You can include yourself. But the helping hand activity is where you have students or yourself, as I said, or your colleagues who know how to do something and someone else doesn't, or they need to learn it. So I can help with, I need help with. And you can even have, a chart or a sheet, and it's a way to help them coordinate how they're going to improve their ability to learn online, the helping hand. And this is also where TESOL has actually a page, where I put it down somewhere else. They have a resource page where they're gathering, here it is, they're gathering resources, and I'll put it here. And this is kind of the helping hand activity a la TESOL. Okay, so that's an important thing. The next is people are different. As you know, students are different. So you have to remember when you're teaching online to build in redundancy 2 ways. One is that when you're putting something up, you have to put it in more than one place because people look online differently and they'll say, I can't find it. And you'll say, well, I put it, but where did you put it? So sometimes I'll put the same exact resource or link or whatever it is, or recording, I'll put it in 3 places for the different ways people think. Maybe I'll put it in week 1, module 1 or something, or I might put it in assignments, or I might put it in announcements or different places on your platform. So remember, you can't just put it where it's intuitive to you. That's important. And the second is put it in more than one way. So I have, for example, I have a course starting in a couple of weeks, and I'm preparing the welcome message. I always do a welcome message. And I'm putting the welcome message up as a video, as an audio file, as a PowerPoint slides, as a Word document, as a PDF document, and as a Google in the cloud. So different people access in different ways. So yeah, is it more work? Yeah, yeah. Work, we're not going to talk about work, okay? But it really matters. And anything you do, you've done it, so you can usually copy and paste and move forward for doing it a second time. Now, you always have to take the temperature. Why? You got to know. You don't want to lose them. If you don't take the temperature all the time, you may lose people. So you've got to find out who posted, who didn't, who submitted something, who didn't, and pay attention. And then also, if they do things late, they might be getting behind. You have to do this continuously, all the time, be aware, and then follow up with them. And never punitive, just like with the pre-work. It's not about, it's about everything okay? My usual is like, everything okay? Checking, everything okay? And you want to make sure that, because a lot of them will be, oh, I didn't want to tell you, or I didn't want to say, or I got mixed up. It's up to you to reach out to them because they may not reach out to you. And once you lose them, wait till the next slide. The next slide is my cardinal rule for equity. Cardinal rule, you cannot catch up in an online class. You cannot. Once you get behind, you're behind. And so the only way to handle that, and somebody will get behind, what you do is you have them come to the current work that you're doing, even if it's cumulative, you have them go to the current work, and then they see, oh, I can do this, but this is missing. And then they can backfill. They can go back and collect the things that they missed that they need. All right. That's the only way it can ever work. And even then it's difficult. Okay. But if they stay, if they try to go back to where they left off, and they're going to be playing catch up the whole time, and they'll never catch up, and exponentially it gets worse. So let's go on. Oh, before we do, one more time for the folks in the back, and some of you might have missed that initial slide, is what does equity get you? What does equity get you? Who remembers? What does equity get you? Put it in the chat if you remember. What does equity get you? Anybody do a screenshot of that slide? It was a key slide. Okay, access, it gets you access. Remember that? All right, now we'll move on to number 2. Time is going, it's all right. All right, enrichment, remember? You remember why we have to do that. So here are some ideas for enrichment that we absolutely must do because equity is not sufficient. Even if we've got them all, understanding online learning, we front loaded it and did all the things we talked about in equity, we must enrich. Here are some ideas. Now, this is where I'd like to say that if we were doing a much longer session and we were interacting more, we would crowdsource this, and I would share a whiteboard, we'd plop things on the whiteboard, and you'd come up with hundreds of ideas, well, a lot, that would be ways to enrich. I'm just going to give you some that occurred to me, all right? So here we go. The first is be our guest, all right? Guests, bring people in to your space, okay? This can be a guest for a discussion forum that you're having either one day or that goes for a week. Bring in somebody to answer questions and ask and interact with your your class. Or in real time in a synchronous session, bring in somebody who's another teacher that will be instead of you that day, bring them in. Or a former student can come in and talk to your current students. Be imaginative. In my second, of course, you're always going to think, well, fine, she teaches this. Everybody teaches something different. I know. I happen to be in teacher education and I teach second language acquisition. I know many of you do direct service and you're teaching English. I understand that. So you have to take the principles of what I'm giving you, not the examples. I'm giving examples from my classes, but think about, oh yeah, in my second grade, I could have so-and-so's aunt who could talk about, something from the experience that they had when they first came to the States or something like that. Okay, be any guest speaker. I had someone come who was a language learner who had learned many languages in classroom and out of the classroom. And my class was examining natural language acquisition versus instructed acquisition. And this guest speaker was able to answer the questions, well, I learned this language this way and that way and here, and they were able to use what they were learning in the class. It was much better than I could have supplied because I didn't have all of those different experiences. All right, next is ripped from the headlines. So I believe that any course you teach, whatever it is, there's something in the news that relates to what you're teaching. And that connects you to the real world outside your classroom. And that's enrichment. In fact, I have a class where every week someone brings in a headline and shares it with us. That's the multicultural course, which you can imagine there are 10 things every day. But in any case, you can do it. And what if you teach physics? You can still do it. So you say, oh, I teach physics. Yes, but just for example, what if a famous physicist just passed away? And you can bring to the class the enrichment of who that person was and what contributions they made to their field. Okay, and you might say, well, that's not what I'm supposed to teach. But remember, create fertile spaces. Okay, that's what keeps them with you. Here we go. Next is trips, virtual field trips. Here's another one where we could crowdsource. So if you know of some sites, this is the Discovery Ed site, but you probably know, if you know any other sites, could you go ahead and put them, feel free to put them into the chat. If you know any sites, I'm gonna put this one in because it's the one I found, but there are many virtual field trips that you can take students on. And some of them are even synchronous, like a live time, exact time, where you can go and get a live virtual tour. But for all ages, all backgrounds, everything, there are tons of places that you can go. My favorite, one of them I like, is the New York City Tenement Museum has a wonderful virtual tour that heartbreaking somewhat, but it's very, very well done. So that's another way that you can enrich your work with the students. Okay. All right. Another one is, of course, why not? They're playing games anyway. You play games with them. So this one is Jeopardy. It's not my field. It's something else, Jeopardy. But my students use it. They love it. They design it. I don't do it. I don't know if I even could. I'm not into that. But there are all kinds of different games that you would know about. And again, put it in the chat if you get an idea. What games could you do? And they're great for review, for retrieval of information. They're fun. If you have students work on them, you'd be surprised what some of your students can come up with. So it's really great, a way to enrich and work with your students through games. Okay, all right. Now, another way to enrich your class, and I put this back halfway through the webinar, it's all in the family. It's all in the family. Woo! Okay, what do I mean? Okay, what you want to do is welcome everybody, not just the student. So instead of, oh, be quiet or close the door, no. If there's a pet, if there's a baby, if there's anybody, if there's a sister, a brother, anybody, it's okay, because if you push them away, they're just going to keep coming back anyway. So what I do is I say, oh, show me, oh, is the baby there? Oh, hi. We all say hello. So let's do that. I'm going to stop sharing, and you hit gallery view, turn on your videos. Everybody, Turn them on. I want to see who's here in the room. I'm going to stop sharing. Turn on your videos now. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. And click on gallery view so we see everybody, okay? We should be able to see everybody. Hello, everybody. There you are. Does anybody have, there's a little girl. Hi. 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 Hello. Anybody got a pet? No pets? We got a couple pages here. Let's look at the different pages. Oh, a lot of you are by yourselves. Okay, that's cool. All right. So this is the kind of thing that I do because I think it's really important to realize we're people, right? And we have lives and we have other things around us. So we're not always by ourselves. And so I think it's important to welcome everybody, okay? So I just wanted to do that for a minute, and we're, okay, and we're, it's okay, don't worry. It's all right, but it is one of the funniest things that's happened. Okay, let me get back to the PowerPoint. All right, interesting. Okay, so you could turn off your webcams now, and we're kind of back. So enrichment, and you see what I'm saying, the point I'm making about it's all in the family. All right, just turn your webcams off now. And my co-host, you can probably clean that up for me, Sherry, if you get a chance. Okay, so we have a cardinal rule for every one of them. And the cardinal rule for enrichment is make no assumptions. And the reason is, remember I said games, maybe someone doesn't want to do games. Okay, so different things will resonate with different students. So just because you think it's enriching, it doesn't mean that all your students will. So it's very important to stay tuned to who's being enriched by what and offer options. And I use potatoes. Now, why do I use potatoes? Well, look at the potatoes, they're all different. So your students are all different. So it's partly that, but it's also partly that when you're online, you want to be a person, and I'm a person. And remember when I said sentimental journey at the beginning? I don't know if you missed that. The very beginning, gonna take a sentimental journey, because that's I can't sing, but you know, it's an old song. So there's also an old song. I like old songs, and I mean old songs. And this one is, I like potato and you like potato, or I say potato. I guess it's I say potato, you say potato. So in any case, you know, that's a piece of me. So part of what resonates with me. Okay, so you have to be yourself online. It's okay to be yourself, and especially for L's, you're their anchor. You're the one they connect with the most. Don't stop being you just because you're online. Be you. You're learning a lot about me, even just in a silly little webinar. Okay, one more time for the folks in the back. Here we go again. What does enrichment get you? What does enrichment get you? Tell me if you remember. What does enrichment get you? Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Please put it in the chat. It gets you motivation, Diana. Okay, so that's motivation. Now we've got them motivated. We've provided equity and enrichment. They're motivated, they have access. Now we're getting to the third one. And I know a lot of you are interested in this one. It tends to be another buzzy kind of word. Oh, engagement. How do I keep them engaged? Get them engaged. Watch. Three most important items. Get ready now. I don't know if you take notes or you're going to watch the recording or what you're doing to keep things straight, but these three are very important. I don't use the word important lightly here. Are you ready? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if you know real estate, right? Real estate, 3 things, right? Location, location, location. So that's how I got that idea. But it's true. It's all about, engagement is all about interaction, all. But how? Interacting every single way you can. And I'm going to show you a lot of different ways. But before we do that, I'm going to give you a poll. So this is another poll. This is poll 3. So if you're watching the recording, I'm going to be asking them what delivery mode they use or plan to use. And that is going to be the question. So I'm launching the poll now, and this is not something I asked in the pre-work, so I'm very interested in your responses. So do you use asynchronous, synchronous, both, or do you need a dictionary, which is fine because our students might need a dictionary, right? So that's okay. If you're not familiar with these terms, you certainly will be in a couple minutes. So everybody answer the question, please. And I'm going to end the poll because we don't have a lot of time, of course. I don't want to be rushed. I know sometimes it sounds like we're rushing because I do want to cover what I have to cover with you guys. Okay, I'm going to share the results. So it looks like a lot of you are using both, which is good. Okay, for those of you who are I shouldn't say only, but yeah, only using asynchronous, it's extremely important to use both, I believe. And I know that some of you are being told by because I read and I listen to what's going on, in the schools, and I know New York City and all that. You can't use this, you can't use that, but you want to do something synchronous of some kind. So you would need to be, again, creating that fertile space synchronously in some way. So work with your administrators, find something. Everything doesn't have to be a particular tool. This is not about the tool. There are all kinds of ways. So now I'm going to show you what you can do asynchronously. So all of you probably do asynchronous. So let's look at some options. So these are some options. Now, many of these are familiar to you, and I'm not going to talk about all of them. We don't have time for that. But I'm going to pick two that are really important that I think you might not know much about. One of them is video lessons, and the other is interactive textbooks. So for video lessons, and you can use any tool, and this isn't about tools, but I do want to say that I use PlayPosit, which is just one of the tools. There's also Edpuzzle, but you're doing video lessons, not videos. The lessons have to be, and in the SOFLA webinar, I demo PlayPosit and I go in great detail on how to use it and all of that. But this is just quick. So I'm just telling you it has to be, you have to embed questions and activities. You can embed all kinds of things that the video stops and there's an interaction. You can get the data, you can download it. You can give preloaded feedback depending on how they respond. It's fantastic. It's really a lesson, and that's what you need. And you get information from the lesson that helps you plan. The interactive textbook, it doesn't mean like you click on a link and then you go to that link that the publisher provides, like interactive that way. What I'm talking about is the students interacting in real time, like social media interaction. They can highlight sections of the textbook and ask each other questions asynchronously. And they see, oh, so-and-so thought this, I'm going to respond this way. And they can even rate the answers that they think, oh yeah. So you can do all kinds of things. You work with the textbook asynchronously, and your students feel like it's kind of like a social media thing. Anyway, you can go to Perusal and find out. And again, I'm sure that's not the only tool. There are other tools, but that gives you a start on the asynchronous options. Now let's look at synchronous. So the synchronous options, and again, I'm only going to go to some of them. So it's interesting. I put video lessons there again because you can even do them synchronously. All right. And the one I want to mention here, because I think most of these are pretty obvious to you, is peer instruction. That's the favorite one. That's the one my students like the most, is that you can peel off a little bit for them to teach to each other. One little thing. When I do my grammar class, and again in the SOFLA, I demo that. One of them teaches the 3 endings of the past tense, 3 pronunciations, so you peel off a little piece that they can learn and teach each other. You can coach them on it. So what I have them do is I have them use Screencast-O-Matic, which is, again, it doesn't matter what you use, but Screencast-O-Matic is very easy, and they can make little videos, and they can teach each other, and they can do it live. They make the video, but then they do it live in class. I usually have them do it in a breakout room, and they can share video and stop it and ask the other students questions, and they love it. They don't want to just learn from you. And sometimes the way they explain it to each other makes more sense to them for some reason, so it's great. They love peer instruction. It's usually when in the evaluations, what do you like best? Oh, I learned Screencast-O-Matic and I taught my fellow students. So that's something I really think is important. Also, just about the chat, I just want to mention the chat. One thing interesting about online is the chat doesn't interrupt the flow. If you're live in a classroom and your students are going, in whatever language, right? Translanguaging or whatever they're doing, okay, it disrupts the flow. Right now, you guys I don't know what's going on in the chat because I get so involved. I'm thinking about what I'm saying. Every now and then I glance at the chat to see that there's not some big explosion like you can't hear me or you can't see the PowerPoint. But generally speaking, whatever you put in the chat, it doesn't disrupt what's going on. So that's another thing to keep in mind about the chat. I know some people that shut down the chat. They don't want people being distracted. No, it's a fertile space. Let it go. If they want to talk about something, it's okay. Remember, we want to keep them. We don't want to lose them. They don't have to learn every little thing. Plus, when you're doing synchronous, always record. Always. Because then they can go back. And in fact, if I have absent students, they watch the recording of class, so they never miss it, even if they miss it. Even if they miss it, they don't miss it. Okay, we're going to move on. So, the cardinal rule for engagement is get out of the way. Okay, so whatever they can do without you as an intermediary, that's what has to happen. Okay, you don't want them to be, always you. So if they're ready to do something on their own, let them do it. All right. And an example is, I know most people don't do this, but this is what I do. I never post in discussions. If it's a discussion, I might launch the discussion with a prompt of some kind, but then I always have the students, they're in there themselves. I'm reading it, I give them feedback behind the scenes, and I give them, an assessment, but I'm observing. I'm watching what's happening in the discussion. And in my case, I'm able to have one of them be the facilitator for each discussion, and one of them does a summary. Well, I ask them to do a synthesis, which some of them are still learning how to do, which is very interesting to me. But anyway, that's the cardinal rule. There we go. All right, one more time, folks in the back. Here we go again. What does engagement get you? This is just so I can drink water. Who remembers? Come on, put it in the chat. What does engagement get you? Who remembers? What does engagement get you? No. Anybody? Hey, Diana, you are all cylinders today. You are all cylinders. Sorry if I missed someone else, but she's gotten several. Okay, participation. So once they're engaged, they will participate. They might be introverts or whatever and not, yelling and screaming every other minute, like obviously I do, but they'll participate in whatever way they can because they are engaged. And without participation, they're not really going to benefit much, right? Even if they're engaged, they have to participate. So that's important. Now we go to the last one. The last piece, and this is an important one, is they're all important, empowerment. So if you really want the space to be fertile, you get to the point, and I don't know if you missed this at the beginning of the webinar, but you're not empowering them. If you provide equity, you make sure you include enrichment in your instruction, and you make sure that they're engaged with all the activities that you provide, they'll feel empowerment, but they'll feel it differently. Why? Because the students that feel empowered in your class will do different things with their power, right? Because we're all different. So we're going to look at some different things that you can look for in your students. And it's very important to have options. Different people are going to learn different things in different ways. So you'll have someone in your class who's the liaison, the one that likes to connect everybody. So liaison, and I put actually the resource page I put earlier, but the resource page the resource page I can put again. Okay. And there we go. Resource page. Okay. So you'll have someone, maybe that person will coordinate the helping hand or the guest speakers, or just in general, you know, stay on top of the discussions of who's doing what. And maybe if you have projects, that person can kind of coordinate who's doing what project and help them communicate with each other. Somebody likes to do that. That's what they like. They will feel empowered to do it. So it isn't always just you. Next one, expert. Everybody's an expert on something. So a little bit like that peer instruction piece. But for example, what I did, I used to teach pronunciation when I could still hear, sorry. Okay. All right, pronunciation. So they were trying to learn clear speech or some old book I was using. And at their final thing, they had to get up and teach us, you know, something that they knew how to do that we didn't know how to do. But they already knew it, so their focus was being the expert to teach the class something new. It wasn't part of the curriculum, it was because of the pronunciation. So I was also listening for, you know, super segmentals, the whole thing. It was very interesting for me in terms of the linguistic piece. But we learned to make paper cranes, and we learned to make sailor's knots, and I don't remember the other ones, but it was fun. So everyone was an expert. They felt empowered because they were showing us something new that we were learning that wasn't just the curriculum. All right, the leader. All right, now one of the things to remember, and this comes from my flipped learning piece, which is that we always say in flipped learning, you're a guide on the side, you're not, you know, sage on the stage. It's kind of a cliche now, but it's real. What you want to do is lead by observing, giving feedback, and assessing, and not have it be teacher-fronted or teacher-centered. So if your students feel empowered, they can also observe, give feedback, and assess their peers. But a lot of times it's a problem, right? Oh, peer feedback never works, peer review never works. And here is a way that it can work. And now is a nod to my colleague, Khalid Fethi, in Berkane, Morocco, which, little trivia, is the Clementine capital of the world. And I know that because I've been there and stayed with him. Hi, Khalid, if you're watching the recording. Okay. He taught me this feedback that works for peer feedback. Students love it. I use it for blogs, wikis, forums, live presentations in synchronous rooms. Okay. Students will either share an idea that relates to their fellow student. They will help them if they feel, remember, helping hand will help them if they feel they can with whatever piece they're working on, or they can ask a question to the other student, or they can give some kind of comment feedback, all right? But it's their choice. And because they have the options, they know, oh, I'm gonna share, I'm gonna help, I'm gonna ask. And it's like a magic thing, it just works. And they feel more comfortable because the feedback has some structure, all right? And this is a little bit, and I like to talk about a continuum. Anyone who's ever learned from me, I like to talk about a continuum of control to free. So if you just say give feedback, that's too free. If you are controlling and you say ask a question, reply to two people and ask them a question, it's too controlling. So what you want is something in the middle. And that's true for everything about teaching. You actually want to be in the middle more, like not a blank piece of paper, write a 5-paragraph essay. Okay, I'm not doing that right now. I'm talking about online. Okay, but in any case, in the middle is Shack. Shack is in the middle. We got to move on. Let's go. All right, the other piece is some people, believe it or not, they're going to take what you taught them and they're going to become a change agent in the world. I visited a class once. They were doing a recycling unit. I think it was very young children, and they were learning about recycling, and they got an idea to do something in their community, in their little world, probably the school or the hallway, something little, but they were going to change things. And they got that idea. Some of your students are going to be change agents. And it takes, this particular graphic, which I cite, there are millions of them, but I like this one because creativity is your starting point, innovation. That's the piece that's key, that's the spark that starts the change. But then you also need your critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So these are the 4 C's. If you're not familiar with them, a lot of people, I hate to say that, I can't say that. I believe that it's very important, the 4 C's of the 21st century. So if you aren't aware of them, educate yourself about them, and you will be inspired. And the last option is something that I've become involved with myself, which is a global citizen. Some of your students will want to become, in whatever way they can, global citizens. I'm giving you 2 suggestions here, and I'm going to give you, all right, just a second. I just did want to give you, for college, the SHAC is discussed in this article. That's where you'll find SHAC. Okay, but now I want to give you global citizen options. So here are the 2 that I do. One of them is IRON. If you don't know about IRON, IRON is, they work with the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 140 nations that are members of it. And I know Germany is one of them, by the way. And of course we are too. And they're international projects for kids that bring kids from different countries together online. They're all online projects. And I started one, the International Film Club. I don't have time to talk about it. We're losing our time here. But in any case, that's one thing. And I've presented on that. You can, if you're interested in hearing more about that. So the other is the Learning Revolution. I'm participating by giving webinars and attending webinars. I've attended some fabulous ones. I've given some fabulous, I've given some, sorry. Okay. But anyway, learningrevolution.com. It's going on all during April and May. April is gone. Bye-bye, April. But there'll be all different May. I mean, all through May. All right, I'm moving. All right, Cardinal Rule of Empowerment, be there always. Not to get all mushy-gushy on you, but to remain empowered, they need to know you're there to catch them. You need to mentor them. You need to love them, okay? They need you even when they're empowered. They need you. Always. And I have many former students that still come back, talk to me, what's the next stage in your life? And many of them are themselves delivering PD. In fact, one of them gave a webinar an hour ago and said, you know, can you come? And it was when I was prepping, and I just, you know, but I attended her other one, and that's Nan Friedland, by the way, if you know her. She's a wonderful adult educator for low literate learners, and I recommend highly the work that she's doing. She's gone way beyond what I've done. She took my model MALP, but she's done a lot more with it. So check her out. And what does empowerment get you? Come on, guys, what does it get you? Hey, all right, you're catching on. Okay, ownership. And let's face it, it's when your students take ownership that they've really internalized what you're teaching them. And that's your goal. Your ultimate goal is for them to take ownership. And that's what I hope happens to you, that you take ownership of your new creating fertile spaces mindset. I want you to think of it that way. You're creating fertile spaces. Own it, be it, do it. Okay. The last poll was reflecting. And here is I want you to reflect. Please, let's reflect. I had 30 of you doing the pre-work. Let's have as many as possible. I'm going to put it in the chat. Do the reflection. So I'm just asking you a few questions, and I'm asking you in the poll right now if you're willing to do it. So here's the last poll. Will you reflect? Will you please reflect? I'm launching the poll. Here's the poll. Will you reflect? Please. And even if you're watching a recording, I'd like you to reflect. I'm keeping it open for responses in the Google form, okay? I'd like to know if you watch the recording or if you watched it live. Will you do it? Okay, so I'm asking you, will you respond to a few questions? It's very short, and I'd like you to do it. I think it will help you too. It'll help you reflect. And so we're ending the poll. It is 4 o'clock. I'm sharing the results. So nobody said, forget about it. You know, New York style. That's nice. I think somebody said that once, and they thought that I meant that they might forget to do it. Of course, I didn't. I meant intonation. That's always part of it, right? Okay. Well, thank you for doing the reflection. Thank you for coming. I put our little ad for Nice Tea Sol. You already have that in the chat a few times. If you're watching the recording, join Nice Tea Sol. We're ending now. This is your reflection. Please reflect. And I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I'm going to be available to you through email. I'm a real person. You can really email me, and I'm happy to collaborate and do further things with you. And I hope you enjoyed being with me today. And some of you, I think I already know, so hi to my friends and buddies that I already know, and hi to new people. Now you know me, I'd like to know you. Okay, bye. Thank you for coming. Goodbye, everyone. I'm stopping the recording. If I can
Okay,
figure
bye,
out-
Helene. Thank you.